She doesn't raise her voice, she raises her value. And when she speaks, men listen, not because she demands it, but because she embodies it. It's not drama, it's not chasing, it's not guilt or games or guessing. It's clarity, it's grace, it's power. And once you understand how a high-value woman talks to a man, you'll never waste your breath again trying to prove your worth. Because real power doesn't speak to be heard, it speaks to be understood. In a world that's often louder than it is wiser, many women are told to fight for attention, to compete, perform, or settle for whatever crumbs are offered in the name of love. But Steve Harvey has always said, a woman of worth doesn't have to shout to be respected. She doesn't try to fix a man who won't meet her halfway. She doesn't bargain with her piece just to be chosen. Instead, she speaks with intention. She holds space with her presence. She builds standards, not walls. And that difference changes everything. In this video, you'll learn what it actually sounds like when a high-value woman communicates. You'll discover how she holds her boundaries, how she expresses her needs without fear, and how her energy commands respect without ever demanding it. By the end, you'll understand something deeper, that the way you speak isn't just about what you say. It's a reflection of how deeply you know your own worth. If you've ever found yourself second-guessing your standards or wondering if you're asking for too much, pause right now and hit that like button. Drop a comment below. Real ones speak with clarity. To claim your worth in this space, and if this resonates with your heart, subscribe for more wisdom like this, because your voice deserves to be heard. But more importantly, it deserves to be honored. She doesn't speak in demands. She speaks in standards. There's a quiet kind of strength that doesn't need to threaten, raise its voice, or break the silence to feel powerful. A high-value woman doesn't say, "You better treat me right or I'll leave." She simply lives in a way that makes anything less than respect feel out of place. She's not yelling to be heard. She's not repeating herself over and over, hoping someone finally listens. She says it once, clearly, calmly, and with conviction. And that's enough, because the truth is, standards whisper where demands scream. And the whisper of a woman who knows her worth carries farther than the loudest voice in the room. Steve Harvey puts it this way: when you carry yourself with dignity, you won't have to chase respect. It'll recognize you on sight. Think about that. She doesn't have to play games. She doesn't need ultimatums. She doesn't try to scare a man into stepping up. Instead, she creates space for maturity. When she says, "I value communication. I don't do disappearing acts," she's not trying to control him. She's showing him who she is and what she will or won't accept. No guilt, no pressure, just truth. And if he's ready to match that energy, he stays. If he's not, she lets him go, with grace, because she's not out here trying to convince anyone of her worth. She's too busy living it. And here's what that looks like. She doesn't wait 3 hours to respond just to prove a point. She doesn't post quotes online hoping someone gets the message. She doesn't ask, "Why don't you treat me right?" She says, "This is how I move. This is the level I operate on. If that's too much, I understand, but I'm not shrinking myself for comfort." That kind of language changes the entire conversation. It turns relationships from confusion into clarity, from emotional tug-of-war into real connection. So, many women were taught that love comes from proving, persuading, or performing. But a high-value woman has unlearned that lesson. She's not asking for perfection. She's just unwilling to settle for performance. And when she speaks from that space, something powerful happens. The wrong men fall away, and the right ones rise up. Because real men don't get scared off by standards. They're drawn to them. They respect the clarity. They rise to the occasion. And the ones who walk away, they weren't meant to stay. They were never ready to honor what she brings. So she doesn't chase them. She doesn't crumble. She doesn't question her value just because someone couldn't meet it. She walks away, not in bitterness, but in alignment. Because she's learned the hard way. It's better to walk alone in truth than to stand beside someone in confusion. And Here's something Steve Harvey reminds women of constantly. Your voice sets the tone for how people treat you, and when you learn to speak from standards, not desperation, you stop attracting chaos. So if you've been speaking from fear, trying to explain your value to someone who never really sees it, breathe. You don't need to fight harder. You just need to speak softer, with more certainty. Not, I need you to stop hurting me. But, I don't stay where I feel unsafe. Not, why don't you treat me better? But, I don't chase people who forget my worth. That shift, it's everything. Because it's not about talking louder. It's about talking from a place so clear, so grounded, so confident, that your silence becomes louder than begging ever could. That's what separates high-value women from the rest. They don't just speak to be heard. They speak to be understood. And more importantly, they speak to stay true to themselves. She doesn't chase, she attracts. Let's get this straight. A high-value woman doesn't run after what walks away. She doesn't chase energy that's inconsistent. She doesn't beg for clarity. And she surely doesn't confuse attention for affection. She understands something deep. The way a man pulls away says just as much as the way he shows up. So when he starts texting less, when the calls fade, when the plans turn vague and the energy shifts into silence, she doesn't panic. She observes. She listens. Not to his words, but to his patterns. And then, she lets his actions speak the truth that his lips won't say. See, most people will tell you to ask, to push, to prove. But Steve Harvey, he'll tell you, if a man wants to be in your life, nothing will keep him out. And if he doesn't, nothing will keep him in. That's why the high-value woman doesn't chase closure. She creates it. She'll send one message, one clear reflection. Hey, I've noticed a shift. If your feelings have changed, that's okay. But I value honesty. I'm not here to play guessing games. And then, she steps back. No games, no guilt, no emotional tug of war. Because a woman like her doesn't beg for presence, she expects it. And if it can't be given freely, she won't force it. She'd rather lose someone by honoring herself than keep them by abandoning her peace. That's what confidence looks like. Not arrogance, not pride. Just self-respect in its purest form. Let's pause here for a moment. How many times have you stayed longer than you should have trying to fix mixed signals, making excuses for someone who was slowly disappearing? We've all been there. You start questioning. Maybe I'm being too sensitive. Maybe he's just busy. Maybe I'm expecting too much. But deep down, you already knew. You just didn't want to believe that someone could lose interest that fast. Or that you were the only one holding it together. Here's what a high-value woman has learned. Your peace is too expensive to trade for temporary company. She's not afraid of being alone. She's afraid of betraying herself for someone who wasn't built to stay. That's why she doesn't chase. She attracts, not by pretending to be cool or acting indifferent, but by being fully, unapologetically herself. Her energy says, I'm not for everyone. And that's okay. She doesn't fear rejection because she's not attaching her worth to someone else's recognition. She's already chosen herself. And that choice? It shows in how she talks, how she moves, how she lets people go without losing her balance. A man might say, I've just been busy. And instead of arguing or accusing, she'll say, no worries, we all get busy, but I value consistency. And if that's not something you can offer right now, I understand. Boom. That's it. No tears, no tantrum, just clarity. And here's the kicker. When she walks away, she doesn't slam the door. She leaves it gently, because she doesn't need to prove a point. Her presence was already the proof. Real men feel that. They feel the absence of her peace. They miss the calm she carried, the softness in her strength, the way she made emotional safety feel normal. And those who weren't ready for that, they don't get a second chance to waste it. Steve Harvey calls that the shift. It's when a woman finally stops trying to be enough for someone who was never even ready. She doesn't wish them harm. She wishes herself healing. And that energy? It's magnetic. Because she's not performing. She's glowing. She's not trying to be liked. She's choosing to be aligned. That's why she doesn't text back out of loneliness. She doesn't accept late apologies. She doesn't respond to breadcrumbs with hope. She's not interested in keeping company. She's interested in building connection. And that connection starts with the one she has with herself. She's not cold. She's centered. Here's something most people get wrong. When a woman finally stops chasing, explaining, or begging for clarity, they say she's cold. They call her distant. They say she's changed. But the truth is, she hasn't gone cold. She's gone centered. She's returned to herself, to her balance, to her peace. Because being centered is not about shutting people out. It's about letting yourself in. It's about knowing what you feel, trusting what you see, and standing on what you know. A high-value woman doesn't operate from fear. She doesn't make decisions based on anxiety. She doesn't speak to be validated. She speaks from validation that's already rooted within. That's what Steve Harvey means when he talks about confidence. It's not a loud performance. It's a quiet alignment. She's done the work. She's cried in silence. She's stayed too long in places that broke her spirit. And now she's learned. She doesn't love less. She just loves wiser. She doesn't talk less. She just talks with purpose. She'll still show up, still give, still nurture. But she does it from overflow, not emptiness. She no longer gives so someone will stay. She gives because she's full enough to share. That difference? It protects her. Because when she speaks now, she's not trying to convince anyone of her worth. She's not asking someone to get it. She says what she means what she says, and lets people respond however they choose, because she knows your reaction is your truth. Hers is how she holds the boundary. Let's paint a picture. She's dating a man. Things start strong, but he begins to shift. He gets inconsistent. Hot one week, cold the next. He says he wants something real, but his actions keep falling short. The old her might have made excuses, overcompensated, tried harder to win his affection, but not anymore. Now she sees the gap, and instead of filling it with effort, she fills it with truth. She doesn't accuse. She observes. She doesn't explode. She expresses, and she might say, "I've noticed a pattern. I'm not here to force anything, but I do value clarity. If this isn't aligned anymore, that's okay. I just won't settle into confusion. No shame, no guilt trip, just presence." That kind of emotional maturity is rare, but it's powerful because it invites only the kind of man who can meet it, a man who can hear hard truths without shutting down, a man who's not threatened by strength, but inspired by it, a man who doesn't feel tested when she has standards. He feels trusted because she's being real. Steve Harvey often says, "You can't build anything real on confusion. Either he's consistent or he's convenient, and a high-value woman don't settle for convenience." So if the energy doesn't match the words, she steps back. Not because she's scared, not because she wants to punish him, but because she respects herself enough to walk away from anything that threatens her clarity. And when she speaks from that place, not the place of fear. That's why her words feel different. She's not saying, "I need you to prove you love me." She's saying, "I love me enough not to question where I stand." She's not saying, "Why? Haven't you called?" She's saying, "I value communication, and silence feels like a mismatch." She's not saying, "Please don't leave me." She's saying, "If this isn't aligned, I won't stop you." And it's that calm tone, that grace, that emotional depth that makes her unforgettable. Because she's not reacting. She's responding. She's not seeking chaos. She's protecting peace. And real men, they don't run from that kind of woman. They slow down. They tune in. They rise because her energy doesn't demand attention. It inspires respect. And the ones who can't handle that, they were never meant to lead with her anyway. She doesn't perform. She aligns. There's a deep shift that happens in a woman when she stops performing for love and starts aligning with it. She no longer adjusts herself just to keep a man interested. She no longer plays the cool girl to seem low maintenance. She no longer tiptoes around her truth just to avoid rocking the boat, because she knows, if you have to perform to be kept, you'll eventually lose yourself just to stay. That's not love. That's emotional theater. And Steve Harvey? He doesn't sugarcoat this. A woman should never have to play small to keep a man. If he's real, he'll rise to meet her, not shrink her down to fit his comfort. So now she moves different. She's not playing roles anymore. She's living her truth. She no longer says she's fine when she's not. She no longer smiles through red flags. She doesn't pretend to be okay with silence, with confusion, with disrespect, just to seem easy to love. Because she's not here to be easy. She's here to be honest. And honesty is the most loving thing you can give someone. Let's break this down. When she's dating someone new, she doesn't hide her needs. She doesn't hold back her standards for fear of being seen as too much. She tells the truth, gently and clearly. She might say, I really value consistency. I don't need perfection. I just need presence. Or, I've outgrown relationships where I have to guess how someone feels about me. That kind of honesty filters people fast. The ones who can't handle it, they'll retreat. The ones who can, they'll lean in. Because what she's offering isn't pressure, it's partnership, and it's not about needing someone to complete her. She's already complete. It's about inviting someone to meet her where she already stands. That energy is rare, and because it's rare, it's respected. When she walks into a room, she doesn't have to announce her worth. Her energy speaks before she ever opens her mouth. She's not trying to be chosen. She's choosing herself, every time, without apology, and from that place of wholeness, she speaks like a woman who doesn't need a relationship to define her, but would still welcome one that adds to her life. Steve says it best. A woman's value doesn't come from who chooses her. It comes from who she chooses to become, even when no one's watching. That's why she moves differently now. She's no longer in relationships where she's constantly explaining her worth, reminding someone how to treat her, or fixing broken promises that were never hers to repair. She's outgrown that. She no longer says, I'll wait until he changes. She says, I'll hold space for someone who's already ready. She no longer asks, why won't he commit? She says, if it's unclear, it's a no. She no longer says, maybe if I'm more patient, he'll finally see my value. She says, my value is visible to those who are clear, and I don't do confusion anymore. That's what alignment looks like. Not settling, not begging, not trying to turn almost into always. It's saying, this is who I am, this is what I value. And if you align with that, great. If you don't, I won't try to force a fit. That kind of energy isn't rigid, it's rooted. She's not judging anyone. She's just choosing what nurtures her growth. And that means letting go of people, patterns, and conversations that pull her out of alignment, not with resentment, with release. Because a woman like her doesn't hold on to people out of fear. She releases them with love. She doesn't punish. She doesn't chase. She doesn't prove. She simply lives, aligned, grounded, and open to what's real. 5. She teaches people how to treat her without saying a word. There's a moment in every high-value woman's life when she realizes how she carries herself teaches louder than anything she could ever say. Not by preaching, not by threatening, not by demanding, but simply by living. She teaches people how to treat her by how she treats herself. If she speaks kindly to herself, others will feel the boundaries of her worth. If she honors her peace, others will feel the limits of her tolerance. If she respects her own time, others will feel the weight of her presence. Steve Harvey calls this silent teaching. It's when a woman doesn't have to list rules or issue warnings, because her energy already speaks her truth. She walks into a room and you feel her standard before she ever says a word. You feel the calm in her confidence, the softness in her strength, the power in her peace. And the wrong people? They stumble around her. Not because she's harsh, but because she doesn't make space for confusion. She's not chaotic, she's clear. And clarity has a way of making people choose, step up or step out. Let's say a man starts playing games. He's inconsistent. He ghosts, then reappears. He flirts, but never commits. She doesn't call 10 times to ask why. She doesn't explode with paragraphs. She doesn't run in circles trying to be chosen. She simply shifts her energy, pulls it back, refocuses inward, and lets him feel the difference. Because she knows, when you stop pouring into someone who doesn't value you, you don't lose power. You take it back. That's the kind of woman who makes you pause. She doesn't need drama. She doesn't even need closure. She becomes the closure, and in that space of quiet self-respect, she reminds everyone around her, I'm not available for confusion. I don't reward inconsistency. I don't negotiate with energy that can't meet me. And again, she's not angry. She's awake. She's not bitter. She's boundaried. Because what used to shake her now only centers her deeper. She's not the woman who begs to be kept. She's the woman who walks away when she's not valued. Not with a storm, but with a steady heart that knows I don't chase peace, I am peace. And when she speaks, it comes from that place. She's not demanding, text me back right now. She says, I value responsiveness. I'm not aligned with silence. She's not arguing, you never make time for me. She says, I'm drawn to people who make space for what matters. She's not screaming, you don't care about me. She says, care looks like consistency. And if that's not there, I'll find it elsewhere. Her language is gentle but firm. Her tone is soft but certain. And her presence is magnetic, because it's rooted in truth. Steve Harvey says, you set the tone. If you keep allowing foolishness, it's because you didn't close the door. So, now she closes the door with grace, not to punish, but to protect. Not because she hates anyone, but because she finally loves herself enough to stop tolerating what drains her. And here's what happens when she lives this way. She starts attracting differently, not because she changed her appearance, but because she changed her energy. The men who come now, they speak more clearly. They step with intention. They feel the standard she lives by, and they either rise to meet it or quietly remove themselves. And that's exactly how she wants it, because she's no longer afraid of people leaving. She's afraid of leaving herself behind to make them stay. So if someone can't meet her in clarity, consistency, and connection, she lets them go. Not with bitterness, but with blessings. Because she's not attached to outcome. She's committed to alignment. That's why when she talks to men, it's never about control. It's about communication. It's about saying, this is where I am. If you're on this level, let's grow. If not, I release you in peace. And that right there, that's the difference between being needy and being necessary to yourself. She doesn't confuse effort with attention. This is where many women, especially good-hearted, loving women, get stuck. They confuse attention for effort. But a high-value woman? She knows the difference. Just because he texts, good morning, doesn't mean he's showing up. Just because he comments on your photo doesn't mean he's investing in your life. Just because he says, I miss you, at 2 a.m., doesn't mean he's ready to build anything real with you at 2 p.m., and she's not cold for knowing that. She's wise. Steve Harvey has said it over and over again. If a man wants you, you'll know it. If he's playing, you'll be confused. That's the blueprint. And this woman? She's done being confused. She's not reading between the lines anymore. She's not overanalyzing every emoji. She's not decoding vague texts or replaying old voice notes. She's watching his patterns. She's observing his follow-through. She's paying attention to consistency, not charm, because charm is easy. Effort is rare. And she's no longer moved by what's easy. She's learned the hard way that effort doesn't look like hype. It looks like habit. It's not loud. It's reliable. It's not occasional praise. It's showing up on a random Tuesday when you didn't even ask. It's not I'll change. It's I already started. It's not promises. It's proof. So now she listens differently. She hears the I miss you, but she looks for the call. She hears I want to see you, but she looks for the plan. She hears you're different, but she watches what he does when her boundaries show up. Because that's where the truth lives, not in flattery, but in action. Steve Harvey calls this grown woman wisdom. It's the kind of wisdom that says, If the behavior doesn't change, the words don't matter. And it doesn't make her bitter, it makes her clear. She's not angry when someone can't meet her in effort. She's just not waiting around to be convinced. If someone is inconsistent, she doesn't question her standards. She questions the alignment. And if there's no alignment, she lets them go. Not with noise, with neutrality, because she's not attached to potential anymore. She's committed to what's present. Let that sink in. She doesn't date a man for who he could become. She dates the version that's in front of her, not the future fantasy, not the once he gets it together vision, not the person she believes he might be one day, but the man he's showing up as right now. Is he reliable? Is he emotionally mature? Does he speak with clarity and live with intention? Because if not, she doesn't try to change him. She doesn't try to build him. She moves on, not because she doesn't care, but because she cares too much to carry what isn't hers to fix. And if he's serious, he'll step up, he'll rise, he'll match her pace, because she's not walking backwards for anyone anymore. That's the shift. She doesn't need someone to chase her, praise her, or keep her entertained. She needs someone who's present, consistent, emotionally available, responsible for their energy. Because she's no longer doing the emotional labor for two. She's not sending long texts explaining how to love her. She's not giving tutorials on how to treat her. She's not coaching someone through basic respect. That's not pride. That's peace. That's Steve Harvey 101. If he wants to love you right, he'll do the work. You won't have to beg for it. So now, when she meets someone, she pays attention to how she feels. Does she feel seen, safe, respected, heard, or does she feel like she's on trial? Like she has to prove she's worthy of being chosen? If it's the latter, she's gone. Because she knows this one truth. Love isn't something you fight to be worthy of. Love is something that sees your worth and honors it without question. So if she ever feels like she has to earn basic kindness or compete for his focus, she chooses herself. Every single time. And when she speaks from that place, it's different. It's not, "Why don't you show me more effort?" It's, "I've realized this connection isn't matching the level of energy I give, and that's okay, but I'm moving forward." No drama, no blame, no war of words, just a clean exit from a place of deep respect for herself. Because a high-value woman doesn't play tug-of-war with love. She opens her hands and lets go of what's not reaching for her too. She walks away with grace, not to prove, but to preserve. One of the most misunderstood strengths a high-value woman carries is the grace to walk away without bitterness. Not as a weapon, not to make a point, not to stir guilt, but to preserve her soul. She knows staying in a relationship that constantly confuses her is more exhausting than walking away and rebuilding in peace. So when a man disrespects her boundaries, when his words don't match his behavior, when he expects forgiveness without change, she no longer negotiates, she no longer justifies, she no longer tries to understand red flags when her spirit is already telling her everything she needs to know. Steve Harvey says it simply, "You don't need to scream your worth. Walk in it. And if he can't see it, walk away." And this woman, she's done explaining it. She's done waiting for potential, done rewriting the story, done hoping someone wakes up to who she is. Because she has, she's awakened to her own worth. And she's not sleeping on it anymore just to make someone else comfortable. So when she walks away, it's not cold, it's clear. It's not emotional reactivity, it's emotional maturity. It's not about winning, it's about not losing herself. Because she's learned, staying in spaces that starve her worth only teaches her how to betray herself in silence. She doesn't leave to make someone chase her. She leaves because she chased herself long enough. She tried. She waited. She gave the benefit of the doubt. But when the pattern stayed the same, when the respect never grew, when the communication remained inconsistent, she left, not with rage, but with relief. Because choosing peace isn't weakness, it's wisdom. You want to know the quietest kind of strength? It's the woman who says, I still love you, but I love me more. I still care, but I won't carry what's not mine. I still hope the best for you, but I won't stand here bleeding. That's not passive, that's power. Steve Harvey calls that the moment when a woman shifts from needing validation to living in vision. She's no longer focused on who's leaving. She's focused on what she's walking toward. A life that feels honest. Relationships that feel easy in the soul, even when they're complex in life. Partnerships that hold space for growth instead of punishing mistakes. And here's what makes her even more rare. She doesn't bash the man she left. She doesn't trash him online. She doesn't try to rewrite the past in anger. She forgives, quietly. She learns, deeply. She rises, slowly and steadily, because she knows what forgiveness truly is. It's not about them. It's about freedom, and she deserves to be free. So when she walks, she doesn't turn back every few steps to see if he's following. She doesn't check her phone waiting for the "I miss you." She deletes the story she was trying to write with someone who only showed up for the first chapter, and she begins again. Not from scratch, but from experience. Because her pain didn't destroy her. It shaped her. It refined her voice. It taught her how to speak from the fire without burning anyone else. Now she speaks with softness because she knows hard things. She speaks with strength because she knows weak moments. She speaks with standards because she lived without them once and paid the price. So when she says, "I wish you the best, but I'm moving on," she means it. And when she says, "This isn't aligned for me anymore," she's not asking for permission to leave. She's giving herself the permission she used to withhold. That's the evolution. That's the moment she becomes unstoppable. And here's the thing. Real. Men recognize that energy. They're not offended by her boundaries. They're honored by them. Because a woman who knows her worth doesn't just raise the bar. She creates a new standard of love. The kind that doesn't need fixing. Just meeting. And the ones who aren't ready, they fall away. While the ones who are, they show up with both feet in toward 8. Her voice becomes her power. By the time she fully steps into her self-worth, her voice no longer shakes. Not because she's hardened, but because she's healed. She doesn't raise her tone to prove a point. She doesn't talk over someone just to be heard. She speaks calmly, intentionally, with emotional precision. She knows that tone changes everything, and so does energy. Her conversations don't sound like ultimatums anymore. They sound like clarity. Instead of saying, "You never treat me right," she says, "That doesn't work for me anymore." Instead of crying, "Yeah, why do you keep doing this?" she says, "This isn't aligned with the life I'm building." And when she walks away, she doesn't look back for closure, because she became it. Steve Harvey has said it with unwavering honesty. When you know who you are, they either step up or step aside. And either way, you win. And that's her reality now. She's not waiting to be chosen. She chooses herself every day. She doesn't romanticize potential. She respects patterns. She doesn't confuse connection with commitment. She watches behavior, not butterflies. She leads with love, but walks with logic. She's not cold. She's just done melting for people who can't handle her fire, because she knows the difference between a man who compliments her body and one who cherishes her soul. She knows the difference between someone who keeps her entertained and someone who keeps her emotionally safe. She knows the difference between fun and fulfillment. And when she speaks, it's not about being right. It's about being real. She's the kind of woman who can sit across the table and say, "I care about you, but I won't shrink myself to stay here," and mean it, because at this stage, she's not looking for chaos with a pulse. She's looking for peace with a presence. She's looking for alignment, not attention. She doesn't need someone to complete her story. She's already written the chapters where she broke, healed, and rebuilt. Now, she's simply looking for someone who reads her story and respects every word. And when she meets someone who can't, she doesn't fight to make him understand. She doesn't chase clarity. She simply whispers, "This chapter ends here," and turns the page. Conclusion. The way she talks to men reflects the way she talks to herself. By now, you've seen the truth. A high-value woman's words are never random. They come from a place deep within, a place that's been hurt but healed, a place that's been silenced but learned to speak softly with power. She doesn't belittle, she doesn't manipulate, she doesn't perform. She leads with truth, she walks with grace, she stands with quiet strength. Because the way she talks to a man is a reflection of how she now talks to herself. And that voice? It's no longer doubting. It's no longer questioning. It's no longer begging for breadcrumbs of love. That voice says, you are enough. You don't need to prove anything. You deserve consistency, peace, and partnership. She's no longer auditioning. She's aligned. And that energy shifts everything, not because she's perfect, but because she's present. And that presence? It's her power. If this message hit your heart, go ahead and tap that like button right now. Drop a comment below. I speak from strength, not fear, to affirm your voice and your worth. And if you're walking this journey of growth, healing, and alignment, subscribe to Self-Decode for weekly reminders of the power already living inside you. Because the world may try to distract you with noise, but your clarity, your grace, your voice, that's what makes you unstoppable. Let them feel your presence before you speak. And when you do speak, let it echo with self-worth.